ER workers. What's the most Final Destination accident you've ever seen? Welcome back, folks. Today we're diving into real stories straight from ER workers and first responders. The kind of accidents that feel straight out of Final Destination. Story 1. A guy comes in after a motorcycle crash, still awake, talking, which already feels like a miracle. Turns out he was riding along minding his business when a metal pipe fell off the back of a truck ahead of him. No time to dodge, no warning, just physics doing its thing. That pipe went straight through his face. And I remember thinking, how are you even conscious right now? Adrenaline is one hell of a drug, man. We're working fast, everyone laser focused, but in the back of your head there's that quiet voice going, this could have been anybody. Wrong place? Wrong second? That's all it takes. No bad choices required, just bad luck and gravity. Then not long after, we had another one that felt like it came straight out of a nightmare movie. Driver on the highway, normal day, probably thinking about work or lunch or bills. Suddenly the vehicle in front of them loses a trailer hitch. That heavy chunk of metal bounces once, just once, and launches like a missile, smashes through the windshield, and goes straight into the skull. No warning, no reaction time. Game over in a heartbeat. That's the stuff that sticks with you. Not the bar fights or the dumb decisions. Those make sense. Cause and effect. But these random, freak, wrong place, wrong time accidents, they mess with your head. After shifts like that, you find yourself driving home a little slower, leaving extra space behind trucks, watching the road like it personally offended you. Story 2. So we get a call about a motorcycle wreck inbound. Bad one. You hear that over the radio, and your brain already starts running the checklist. Trauma bay ready, blood ready, everybody moving fast. Standard chaos. Nothing unusual yet. Then the ambulance doors swing open, and this dude rolls in on the stretcher looking shocky but awake. Pale, sweating, the whole deal. And I'm scanning him head to toe, counting limbs like we always do. One arm, two arms, one leg. Hold up, where's the other leg? Before I can even ask, this man casually lifts his hand, and he's holding his own severed leg, just gripping it by the boot like it's a piece of luggage he forgot in the back seat. I swear to you, the room went dead silent for half a second. That weird pause where everyone's brain has to reboot. And this guy, bleeding out, adrenaline pumping, staring right at us goes, hey, y'all can save the leg, right? Also, don't mess up my boot. Not, am I gonna die? Not, does it hurt? Not, call my family? Nope. Man was worried about his footwear. Priorities locked in. We rushed him straight to surgery, full speed, all business. But later, in the break room, we were all sitting there, like, Buddy just lost an entire leg, and his biggest concern was the condition of his boots. Story 3. So it's the 4th of July, which, if you work emergency medicine, is basically the Super Bowl of poor judgment. You already know somebody's gonna lose eyebrows, fingers, dignity, sometimes all three. We're braced for it before the sun even sets. Then this kid walks in, white as a sheet. I mean ghost, pale. Lips trembling, clutching his hand wrapped in a towel that's turning darker by the second. You can see the shock written all over him. That blank, stunned look like his brain hasn't caught up to what just happened yet. Whole room snaps into action. Gloves on, trauma mode, everybody moving fast. And right behind him comes Mom. Not crying, not panicking, furious. She marches up like a woman who has had it. Absolutely had it. With teenage nonsense. Without missing a beat, she reaches into her purse and pulls out a Ziploc bag, just casually, like she's handing over leftovers from dinner. Inside, finger pieces. She shoves the bag toward the team and turns to her son and says, dead serious, zero sympathy in her voice, "You'll be lucky if they can put any of these back on you." The room went real quiet for a second. Not awkward, just that heavy silence when everybody realizes this kid is learning a life lesson the hardest possible way. We rushed him to surgery, did everything we could. Surgeons work their magic. And in the end, they managed to save his thumb and a couple small stumps. Enough for some function, at least. But the rest of the fingers, the ones Mom brought in, yeah, those were done. Too damaged, too far gone. No coming back from that kind of blast. And I guarantee you, For the rest of his life, every time he hears fireworks popping in the distance, he's gonna remember two things: respect explosives, and never underestimate how fast mom can produce a Ziploc bag. Story 4. Man, I swear the ER is basically a live-action episode of Final Destination, just with worse lighting and more paperwork. So this dude rolls in after getting struck by lightning. Yeah, actual sky zap, Thor-level nonsense. We strip him down fast, doing the whole head-to-toe check, looking for an exit wound. Nothing. Zip. Nada. And that's when the room got real quiet, because if electricity goes in and doesn't come out, buddy, your organs might be slow cooking like a gas station burrito. Not ideal. About an hour later, his friend bursts in, all out of breath, yelling, "Hey man, your dog's okay." And we're like, cool. Good for the dog, but we're kind of busy keeping you alive, sir. Then he goes dead serious. Did you see the dog's collar explode off its neck? That was crazy. Cue all of us just staring at each other like, hold up. Turns out the guy was holding the leash when lightning hit, and the electricity traveled right down it and blasted out through the dog's metal collar, like nature installed a grounding wire on a golden retriever. Absolutely wild. 15 years later, I still think about that poor dog getting jump scared by Zeus. Story 5. So this was back in the early 2000s, and I'm sitting at reception booking in a patient, doing the usual paperwork shuffle. Nothing dramatic. Phones ringing, printers whining, that low hospital buzz. Then I start smelling something. At first it's faint, like someone left toast in the toaster too long, but it keeps getting stronger. Smoke, and this awful, sickly smell of burnt meat. I remember looking around thinking, what the hell is that? Did something short out? Did the cafeteria burn dinner again? It lingered for a few minutes, just hanging in the air, making the back of my throat feel weird. Then the front doors open, and this man walks in looking like he crawled straight out of a zombie movie. Skin blackened, clothes half melted onto him, moving slow and stiff. Not screaming, not panicking, just walking. He shuffles up to the receptionist and mumbles, calm as anything, that he needs to see a doctor. It took me a second, and I still feel guilty about that pause. Before my brain snapped into gear, I jumped up, grabbed a stretcher, and rushed him straight into Rhesus. The doctor there lit into me immediately for not calling ahead, and honestly, they were right. I should have. I just didn't process fast enough what I was seeing. Turns out he'd been burning rubbish in his garden, and somehow managed to burn more of himself than the trash. Full-thickness burns over most of his body, the kind where the nerves are destroyed, which is why he wasn't screaming. No pain, just shock and damage beyond repair. And that smell, that burnt meat smell, it suddenly made horrifying sense. He died not long after. Story 6. So we get this patient brought in by EMS, and right away you can tell something is very, very wrong. He's barely responsive, skin looking strange, wet, pale, almost peeling, and there's this smell in the room that makes your stomach tighten before you even know why. Turns out he'd been drinking tequila. A lot of tequila. Enough to pass out in the shower. Now normally that's just a bad hangover story waiting to happen, but this time the hot water ran out after a few minutes, and the cold water kept running. He stayed there, unconscious, under that freezing spray for hours. Hours! By the time someone found him, his skin had basically started to break down from prolonged exposure. From his ear all the way down to a hip, just sloughing off, raw tissue underneath. It looked less like a typical injury, and more like the body had simply given up protecting itself. We tried pain meds, of course. Threw everything we safely could at it. But here's the cruel math of medicine. The amount he needed to control that level of pain was so high it would have shut down his breathing. So you're stuck walking that razor's edge. Ease suffering, but don't stop the lungs. It's a terrible place to be as a provider. We stabilized him as best we could and transferred him to a level 1 burn unit. The people with the most tools, the most experience, the best shot. Everyone in the room knew it was serious. Real serious. Word came back a few hours later that he didn't make it. Story 7. So we get this elderly gentleman brought in after a welfare check, and right away you can tell he's been through it. Quiet, polite, the kind of older man who apologizes for taking up space, even when he's clearly the one who needs help. Turns out he'd fallen outside his house, smacked his head, and, here's the kicker, accidentally locked himself out. Rural area. I mean middle of nowhere rural. No neighbors close enough to hear you yell, no quick help coming. Then it starts raining. So, he climbs into his car to wait it out. Except it's summer. Like 90-degree heat. Windows up. Stuck there for 2 whole days. A family member finally shows up, finds him weak, dehydrated, barely hanging on, and calls 911. By the time he gets to us, he's got this makeshift bandage on his forehead. Just napkins pressed against the wound. Real DIY survival mode. We're thinking, okay, head laceration, dehydration, let's clean it up. Doctor gently peels the napkins back, and that's when everybody in the room collectively goes, "Oh, no, maggots!" everywhere. In the wound, on the napkin, literally falling out, just gravity doing its thing while our stomachs try not to revolt. It was one of those moments where you focus real hard on being professional because your brain is screaming, this is not in the job description. But here's the part that stuck with me, the part that matters. He was so sweet, soft-spoken, thanking us for helping him like we'd done him some grand favor instead of just basic care. We got him fluids, cleaned the wound, admitted him for dehydration, kept an eye on him for a couple days. And then he went home. Story 8. So this girl walks into the ER looking like she just lost a bar fight with Mike Tyson. Face all busted up, swelling, bruises blooming in real time. The whole deal. Naturally, we're thinking domestic violence, maybe a bad car wreck, something serious. You see injuries like that, and your brain goes straight to worst-case scenario mode. We're already mentally prepping the paperwork, calling imaging, bracing for drama. Doctor asks, calm and professional, "What happened to you?" And she goes deadpan, "Got headbutt by a cow." We all just froze for a second. Like, excuse me? Did you say cow? Turns out she was out tending the family cattle, minding her business, probably thinking about lunch or bills or whatever. And one of those big old bovine tanks decided to throw hands, or, well, head. No warning, no build-up. Just wham, straight to the face. Lights out, welcome to the rodeo. And the best part? She was hilarious about it, sitting there with an ice pack, cracking jokes like, "Guess I finally met someone more hard-headed than my ex." And, "Doc, can you write me a note that says I lost a fight with a hamburger?" We were trying to stay professional, but man, the room kept breaking into little snorts and chuckles. Not the craziest thing we've ever seen, but definitely the only time someone got sucker punched by dinner. Story 9. So this old farmer shuffles into the ER, looking like he'd rather wrestle a tractor than be there. Guy's got that stubborn, sun-baked energy. You know the type. Arms crossed, jaw set, muttering that he's just got a dang flu, and his wife is the one making a federal case out of it. And I'm thinking, yep, classic rural dude logic. If you ain't actively bleeding or on fire, you're fine. Walk it off, drink some coffee, complain about it later. We start checking him in, slow and routine, nothing dramatic. Then, bam, his wife, who had been standing there perfectly normal 2 seconds ago, grabs her chest and just crumples. Full-on cardiac event. Alarms, shouting, the whole circus. Suddenly, we're not worried about Farmer Flu anymore. We're running a code on the woman who dragged him in. And here's the part that still messes with my head. She didn't come because she felt sick. Not really. She came because he had a cough, and she was tired of hearing him gripe about it. Pure spouse-level nagging. The everyday, you're going to the doctor whether you like it or not energy. But they lived way out in the sticks. I mean rural. The kind of place where an ambulance ride is basically a road trip. If that heart attack had hit while she was at home, man, odds are ugly, real ugly. So yeah, fate, luck, divine intervention, call it whatever you want. All I know is that her husband's stubborn little flu saved her life, and he never complained about her nagging again, at least not where she could hear it. Story 10. So this wasn't even our call. We just dropped off a patient, paperwork done, ready to head back out and grab coffee. You know, the little reset between runs. Then a nurse flags us down real quick and asks if we can lend a hand moving a bariatric patient into a bigger bed before we leave. Simple favor. 5 minutes, tops. We walk down the hallway joking about dinner plans. Totally normal shift energy. Then we open the door, and the smell hits first. Not strong, not sharp. Just wrong, heavy, sweet in the worst possible way. The kind of smell that makes your brain go quiet because it doesn't know how to process it. I remember freezing for half a second, thinking, what am I walking into right now? The woman was lying there, very still, skin discolored, and you could see immediately that something had been going on for a long time. Neglect, infection, something chronic and severe. She was alive, barely, but her body looked like it had been losing the fight for weeks. We start the transfer, careful, slow, doing everything by the book. And the moment we shift her weight, that's when it happened. Blood starts seeping from her legs, from pressure sores that had broken down. Then movement, tiny movement. At first, you think your eyes are playing tricks on you, but no, maggots. Not one or two, a whole swarm, pouring out from wounds, from skin folds, from places you didn't even know could hold that kind of damage. The room went dead silent. No jokes, no chatter, just the sound of gloves snapping and people focusing real hard on the task, because if you stop to think about it, your stomach's gonna revolt. We finished the transfer, cleaned up, walked out into the hallway, and nobody said a word for a minute. Years later, every once in a while, that smell still pops into my head out of nowhere. No warning, just a memory your brain refuses to delete. That's the wild part of this job. Not everything you see leaves a scar on your body. Some of it just lives rent-free in your senses forever. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and stay safe. You never know when a normal day turns into an ER story.